You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Sarah Golseth. I have a joy to have with me in studio the executive director of the Lutheran Heritage Foundation, the Reverend Dr. Matthew Heise, here to talk about some of the exciting things happening with the Lutheran Heritage Foundation. It's always great to catch up on all the great stuff that's happening with LHF. So thank you so much for
thank you, Sarah. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So many things happening with LHF. All of this great work. I see it on your website and on your Facebook page. Always a new thing happening, especially at the beginning of the school year, new projects coming up. But before we get into that, can you give us like your elevator speech, a quick rundown of the mission of LHF and what you all do?
Lutheran Heritage Foundation translates, publishes, distributes, and introduces books that are Bible-based, Christ-centered, and Reformation-driven. And we do that really for all segments of the church, for the mission field primarily, but also for the mission field here in America, because there are so many of these immigrant groups here. So we are there to supply those who go on short-term mission trips from their churches, those who have immigrants in their neighborhood, because immigrants are among us, U.S. I always kind of do. That's my little shtick, because they are. And this is a great way to reach out to people with something like a children's Bible storybook catechism for someone's birthday, for someone's I was going to say bar mitzvah. Boy, I'm way off on that one. For Christmas time in particular, it would work out a whole lot better, I think.
Yeah.
We're actually contemplating doing something in Hebrew with Dr. Bob Rogner, so that's why I was thinking of that too.
That would be really interesting.
That would be real interesting to do something like that. Yeah. But so those are basically some of the things that we do.
Yeah. And do you know off the top of your head, how many languages have you translated?
I do. We have translated into 106 languages. We are working with about 5 or 6 others, so Lord willing, we'll be over 110 pretty soon.
Wow, that is cool. And I think you have a list of all of the things that are translated and all of the things yet to be translated.
We do have a list of books that are translated on our website. Mm-hmm. And we also have a list of what we call projects. So we actually give you an idea of how much it costs for a project, how much it would cost for a book, whether it is sponsored or not. And that's also on our website. So people will have an idea, I'd like to support this project. Oh, it's already supported, but maybe there's another project. So we try to keep that updated regularly so they can see that.
Yeah, there are a lot of projects, a lot of really great work. Yeah. So the newest project, the shiny one that we're talking about today, the Children's Missions Project for this school year. Tell me about that.
Yeah, every school year we come up with a new project to kind of get the kids interested in schools, Sunday schools, vacation Bible schools when that comes up too. This year it's books for children in Ethiopia. We have pretty much exhausted our 10,000 children's Bible story books that we printed for Ethiopia. Well, Mekana Jesus is well over 9 million, so it's a drop in the bucket. Yeah. And so one of the things we like to get kids excited about is seeing a growing church that is doing outreach, and now how can we get those kinds of Lutheran materials into their hands? Luther's Small Catechism, children's Bible story books, those primarily are things that we would do for kids. And so what we do, we like to we have project kits put together by our staff so that a teacher doesn't have to say, gee, how would I teach this unit? We have kits with activities that they can do and also explain, the country of Ethiopia, what it is, telling people that there are numerous languages, hundreds, that you're amazed at how many languages are in that country. You think the dominant Amharic, but our own director for Africa, Dinku Bato, Dr. Dinku Bato, who is based in the Twin Cities, his native language is Oromo, which is the second largest group, and a predominantly Muslim people. Because you think of Ethiopia, it's 70% Christian, but 30% Muslim. There's a larger Muslim population than people know. And so there's great work going on there in the borderlands of Somalia and so forth. So this is a great project, and we love to get kids excited and interested in this. So we will send staff members out to schools, but we send these kits out to people and let them know that, you don't have to be wealthy. Sometimes I think smaller schools say, well, bigger schools could do a lot more than we can. We have maybe, say, 20 Sunday school students, so we can't really do that much. And we say, depending upon your time slot, say you just asked each kid to maybe give an offering of a total of $5 in the span of a month. And of those 20 Sunday school kids, those $5, that adds up to $100. That's 20 books.
Wow.
For 20 kids in Ethiopia. So what you have is the 20 American kids giving to the kids in Ethiopia. So they also get God's Word. And so that's kind of an exciting thing because, a lot of them, they just don't have the resources over there. And we've got that great opportunity. So we really love to get schools involved in this.
Mm-hmm. And it's such a small difference, a small amount of money that makes such a large difference for all of these kids in Ethiopia and other places too.
Oh, it does. It's amazing to me because when I went to Ethiopia a few years back, well, I've gone there most every year, but I remember in particular a few years back because I was going from classroom to classroom in schools, and I think the teachers were probably a bit irritated with me after a while. I mean, havoc broke out. It was. I could realize as a former teacher. That teachers lost the kids for the day because, they had these paperback little things, something you'd get at a local Walmart or so. They didn't have hardcover books. And to give them this shiny, beautiful, well-illustrated Child's Garden of Bible stories in their own language, Amharic, the kids were they were excited. And of course, here's this foreigner coming in, but distributing these books, and they were just thrilled. And I think the teachers, after a while, were probably happy too, because we've added questions. CPH has been good enough to allow us to add questions to the ends of the stories. So this is good for teachers. Okay, here's some activities for the kids once they finish the Bible story, and they ask some questions and repeat it. And just one image just sticks with me when I was walking out of what they call the Mother Church in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, a church founded by Swedish Lutherans, well over 100 years ago. And I just remember as our car was pulling out, I saw this little girl, and she just took the book, and she was holding it tightly to her chest with her arms crossed. And it was as if to say, this is my book. This is mine. And I always think of those seeds planted because, you never know what's going to happen in the life of that person who has God's Word at a very early age. It's important.
Yeah, and a lot of times we take for granted our large libraries of books and all of these theological materials, even for kids that are available in English. Whenever we have missionaries come through here, they always talk about how few resources are available in native languages, especially in Africa, where you have a country with hundreds of languages, which is a little mind-blowing to Americans who really only speak English. A lot of us, anyway. It's that is an incredible thing for a person to finally receive something in their own native language that they can read and understand and share with other people too.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to kind of, too, talk about our closer relationship with our Office of International Mission and Area Director Shawan Trump there in East Africa. We're working together to get into Tanzania a little bit more, and Swahili, the dominant language there. So a lot of these children's Bible story books will be making their way south from where we've had them printed in Kenya down to Tanzania, where, the number of Lutherans is great, but a lot of the Lutheran teaching is just not there. And so our own mission arm, we work really closely with them and International Director Pastor Dan McMiller. We've had great meetings with him and talking about what can we do to help you, and so that's worked out well. But I did want to mention too that when we talk about this helping these other churches, sometimes we don't think about what impact it has on our own kids. I mean, you of course are a crosstown rival of ours from Emmanuel Lutheran in Dearborn, and I grew up at Guardian Lutheran in Dearborn.
It's true.
Yeah, we won't talk about the sports games and things like that. We used to beat you. No.
Yeah, you guys were way better.
Well, we
than
were
us.
big. We were bigger too.
You're much bigger than we were.
Well, that's why. But the really neat thing about it was we always had missionaries coming in, and you just never know the impact that it has because Pastor Mike Tanney, who's over at St. John's in Morganford, he ended up going in the mission field. Jim Tino ended up going in the mission field. I went in the mission field. Greg Seltz, I guess we can add him too. Maybe he went in the mission field too. But there were a lot of people from the church who had mission just planted into their brain at a young age. I remember the old little carousels with the slides coming in there and missionaries coming in and talking about it. And, it was fascinating. people serving in another part of the world, learning about a different culture, but also being able to share God's word with them. That was just an exciting thing, I think, for all of us, and realizing the opportunities. And to this day, the church, my home church, which I'm still a member of, will send out short-term mission teams. They built a church in Barquisimeto in Venezuela as well. So those connections continue. And to me, if we go into a lot of these grade schools, a lot of these Sunday schools, like I say, big or small, it really doesn't matter. You don't know the impact you might have on one individual.
Absolutely. And that's such a great thing. And I remember growing up, we had our missionaries on our prayer list, and I remember praying for all of these missionaries. I still remember their names because we prayed for them so often, and having missionaries come through to our church and the school, it does make a huge impact when you think about these people serving around the world and sharing the gospel of Jesus. But you also mentioned sharing the gospel right here at home. Not all of us will be missionaries to travel around the world, but we have people here too in the U.S. that we can still share the love of Christ with, and who still need things translated into different languages too, if they're immigrants.
Right. We are an immigrant nation. I always kind of use this little shtick, immigrants among us, U.S., because immigrants are still, we're an immigrant church. I think we sometimes forget that because we always kind of think, well, Missouri Synod, German, Lutheran. We don't realize or really focus on the fact that we were immigrants at one time. You too were strangers in a strange land, as we might read from Deuteronomy. We were strangers in a strange land, and there are many other strangers in a strange land today, in our land, who are coming here. And we have the opportunity to, at least as they learn English, also provide materials in their own language. We have this Chinese catechism, which is is bilingual English Mandarin. So this is one thing that our Pastor Rod Benkendorf, who serves with us, just had a great opportunity. He was doing a presentation at a school again, and there was a Chinese kid in there who said, "Hey, I can read that." Oh, really? He was going to the school. His parents were unchurched. And the pastor said, "Hey, you have something I can work with them on? They're interested." And we had a bilingual catechism, so they could read the Mandarin, he could read the English, and they became members of the church. Those are things that you just never know, because there are all these immigrant peoples among us. And since we're working in 106 languages, there's a good chance that we might know some of those. Although I'm here in town for the student orientation at Concordia Seminary, and I learned from a couple of students from Liberia about the, I believe it's the Bassa language, so I'd never heard of that one before. I said, well, okay, we got to work on this.
There's always more to add to the list.
There is, to the ends of the earth, yes.
Absolutely, yeah. Such great work you're doing here at home and abroad with all of these translation projects, and getting young people involved in what's happening here and around the world, and what it takes to share the gospel with people who may never have heard about Jesus before. So we are all out of time, but thank you so much for joining me in studio. The Reverend Dr. Matt Heise, Executive Director of the Lutheran Heritage Foundation. Thanks so much, and I'm sure we'll talk with you again when you're here in St. Louis.
Sarah. Appreciate it.
You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Sarah Gulseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.